Good evening, everybody. As you know, my name's Todd Rolla. I'm the Director of Public Works and Land Use here in Summers. Tonight, as you know, we have a presentation with the Connecticut Department of Transportation about the intersection and center of town. Couple things to note of that. It's the improvements that are being recommended. It's actually three. One is to do nothing. One is a realignment, which is a traditional intersection with lights, and the other is a roundabout, a modern roundabout. Not a Massachusetts rotary. I have so many people that say rotary. That's the 100-mile-an-hour, take your life in here. That's not what we're talking about. A modern roundabout is like what we see in the Five Corners of Ellington or down in Stafford that they just did on 190 and 319. Something of that sort, but they'll have maps and they'll talk about all the details about that. Tonight is an information session to get your input. It's about a 30-minute presentation by DOT, and then there's a question and answer period. This is not a formal meeting. There's no votes. It's getting the input from the residents of the town on what their thoughts are on any of these proposals. So now I will turn it over to the first selectman, Tim.
Thanks, Todd. As you know, my name is Tim Keeney. This project that we're talking about has been a long time in coming. We've been talking about trying to fix the intersection of 190 and 83 for many decades. So I appreciate the turnout tonight. This is an impressive group. And we look forward to hearing what DOT wants to present. Since both these roads are state roads, DOT is in charge. But they're obviously interested in public comment. They're also interested in educating the public as to what they're proposing and why. So with that, I'd just like to introduce the three people from DOT, Marissa Paffinger, Andrew Correa, and Kevin McKernan. Turn it over to Marissa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Todd kind of teed it all up for us really nice. So thank you all for coming tonight. Happy holidays. So tonight we have a presentation to go through a lot of the information that was presented. Before we get going, just a couple of housekeeping items. So we do have a sign-in sheet up front. If you'd like to leave your contact information for us, that just helps us know who is here and have a way to get in contact with you in case we do get any follow-up from you. You don't need to sign in, but if you'd like to, it's always helpful for our records. There's also a stack of mail-in comment forms. If you get home after the meeting today and would think of something that you didn't have a chance to share and you would like to send it in via the U.S. Postal Service, you're welcome to do that. It's already pre-addressed with my name on it, so it'll come right to my office. That being said, at the end of our meeting tonight, there will be contact information on the screen to allow people to either email or phone call us or do anything else in order to reach out or share additional feedback at the end. And other than that, we do ask, we've got about a 30-minute presentation, so we ask that we do hold questions till the end. But we'll be here as long as you folks are or until we get kicked out, so we'll try to answer any and all questions at the end. So before we get going, so the Connecticut Department of Transportation operates and programs the services without regard to race, color, national origin, in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Any person who believes he or she has been aggrieved by any unlawful discriminatory practice under Title VI may file a complaint with the Connecticut DOT, and there is a website to do so at the end. So our agenda for tonight. So we'll introduce the project team, which again has somewhat already been done. We'll go through the presentation of the proposed project. This does include some of the background information on the purpose, a lot of the existing condition information. We'll go through the proposed improvements and cover the impacts, benefits, and costs, and then the major purpose, which is really soliciting your feedback for the different options, so comments, questions, and answers. We'll open the floor and we'll go one at a time. As I said, if we could wait to the end for questions, that'd be great, but I'll go ahead and call folks out and we'll answer anything or hear any comments or feedback. So I myself, Marissa Paffinger, I'm an engineer with our project development unit, which is within our Division of Highway Design. With me is Andrew Correa, our project manager, and Kevin McKernan, who is our project engineer. Michael Calabrese is our division chief in our Division of Highway Design, but he wasn't able to be here tonight, but he does say thank you all for participating. So this slide, so the project development process, Todd alluded to it, I think the first selectman did as well. We really want to reiterate that what we're here to present tonight, this is not an initiated project yet. So there is no official design team that's been assigned, there is no funding allocated, and there's no hard schedule set to it yet either. The reason that we're here tonight is to make sure that the ideas that we've put forward, the engineering work that we've done, has an opportunity for public feedback before we commit those funds. So the idea, again, is engagement, and we show this slide really to illustrate that, unfortunately, to the first selectman's point, we are still early in the process. We have done some preliminary engineering work, but once a consensus is reached at the end, and if a project does move forward, there is still a formal design phase that needs to occur. That could be anywhere from 2 to 3 years, depending on the complexity, and then the construction would begin after that. So we want to really alleviate anyone's fears in case they're worried that a shovel is going to be in the ground tomorrow. Certainly that's not the case. We are here to solicit feedback, and this is early in the process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew to start the conversation and to get into the information.
All right, well, thank you again. My name is Andrew Correa. I'm the project manager with the project development unit. So to begin, we're going to go through a little background. You know, why are we here in general? We know there's an existing jog about 70 feet going between the north and the southbound sections of 83, which run pretty much right with 190. As you can see, it's a known instance that there's a lot of tractor trailers that come through this area. The rutting that you can see is actually right in front of the gas station on the southwest quadrant between 190 and 83. As you can see, it does a lot of damage. The corner is really tight. That's one of the things that we noticed as a main concern. Another main concern is also this concurrent left turn lane that happens on 190 between east and west motions. As it is right now, the way the roads are aligned, it does cause some concern between the traveling public, most likely because the center lines are kind of almost aligned to a certain degree, which kind of comes with a lot of close calls that go along with that. Also, previously, the way the 83 is offset, there's also these concurrent running left turns. As you can see, there's some hot spots that run in between the two of them, which was alleviated with a project in the last 5 years. That was a traffic signal upgrade, and what that did was reduce the safety concerns in the area. What we saw in the past 3 years after the signal was installed, there was a 48% reduction in crashes as well as a 50% reduction in the total injuries. The downside to that was a decrease in efficiency running through the operations through the actual intersection itself. So as you can see, here's what some of the congestion looks like from infield pictures. This is kind of heading up 83. As you can see, the queue is running really, really far behind. And what we're seeing is probably about 1,000 feet or more of cars sitting in traffic and idling, waiting to get through the signal cycle. So some of the existing traffic conditions that we've noticed out here. So Route 190 is posted for 30 miles an hour, and Route 83 is posted for 35. Now, when we're looking at traveling speeds through an intersection, we look at both the average speed as well as the 85th percentile speed. And what the 85th percentile speed is the speed at which vehicles are traveling 85% of the time at or below that speed. So as you can see, in comparison to the posted speeds, there's definitely some higher speeds coming through here, you know, between 5 to 10 miles an hour over. You know, associated with speed, we also look at traffic volumes coming through here, especially when we're looking at congestion and operational developments. East, west, and south are all about the same. About the same kind of travel. So what we look at is we're looking at vehicles per day. So now that's an average daily traffic. So the north, it's a little less, but they're kind of all within the same realm of a range. Now, especially for this, we're looking at a historical value as well, just because we know that the signal was installed within the last 5 years, and that was associated with the analysis that happened beforehand. So as we notice, between 2011 and 2017, for an example, we're looking at the south side of 83. A lot of the volume stays the same, but then we notice in 2020, the volume drops dramatically. And we've seen this all over the state, and this is mostly due to the pandemic, but there's a lot of different variables that could also be associated with it. As you can see, some of the newer present-day values that we also get in 2023 is almost up to that same volume as before the pandemic, but it's not quite up there. There could be a couple different variables that are associated with this, most notably people trying to avoid congestion within this area by bypassing the area and driving through its other routes. So what are our concept considerations? So what are our processes that we go through as a PDU? So first we meet with the town officials. We try to hear out some concerns and issues that are going on. We try to keep in constant contact so that we understand fully what's happening in the situation. Second, we'd like to look and gather traffic data so we can do analysis on it. As you can see from the previous slide, that's what we did. Speeds, volumes, congestion. We could run models through that to see what we can forecast and see if we can get the existing conditions down. From there, we also go out in the field. We see traffic firsthand. We want to see what the peaks look like. We want to see how the vehicles are moving. Are they going fast? Are they stuck in traffic? And then from there, we actually look into some of the historical records to see if any corridor studies were done or if any planning studies was also done. For an example, I'm clicking the wrong ones. Sorry. So for example, with this is the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development that the town of Summers completed. So within this report, they wanted to establish a village district, which I believe they recently completed. They also wanted to increase walkability as well as pedestrian access and also complete streetscape at the same time, as well as doing more roadway improvements. So now after we do all this research, all this analysis, and we look through it, where does that land us? We start looking at concept analysis, alternatives. So as Todd brought up before, we have a couple that we looked into. So we investigated a few of them. We start with a baseline, which is a no build. So if we left it as existing, we could see that it's going to degrade over time as it constantly is. Another one that we looked into was not as viable was additional lanes coming in here. Right now there's a turn lane on Route 190 heading eastbound. What would it look like if we added turn lanes to all the other ones? It would alleviate some of the congestion, but it really wouldn't leave much to give us anything for the future development in case traffic got worse within 10 years or more. And then another one is to realign Route 83, but push it more towards the west. So that would increase the 70-foot offset that's there now into about 200. So you're almost looking at two distinct intersections coming up to here. Two T intersections with some storage space in between for traffic as it sits through congestion. But what we're going to be talking about today is what we're advancing to a full concept. And that's going to be pretty much realigning 83 to more of a straightforward up and down motion to kind of coincide with 190. So that way it's a more traditional intersection. So what does that leave us with there? Our two main contenders for a concept is a roundabout and a traditional traffic control signal. Now before we go into a little more technical details on the concept alternatives, I'm just going to give a little refresher on roundabouts versus traffic control signals. So main question is why? Why roundabouts? We're seeing them more and more every day. We see them through the U.S. more and more as you travel. It doesn't matter East Coast, West Coast, rural, urban. They're starting to pop up everywhere. Especially in Connecticut, we've noticed over the past 20 years, even 10 years, they've been starting to increase. With Todd also noting that Ellington, Stafford, and even Granby have been the newest additions to some of our roundabouts. Thanks. So from a safety aspect, what are we looking at? We're looking at a roundabout versus a traditional intersection. So on the left-hand side, it's a traditional four-way intersection, and the right side, there's your roundabout. So when you're coming up on a single approach to on a leg, you're kind of dealt with three different travel motions. You're going to the right, you're going through, or you're turning left. In the roundabout, these are the same motions here, right, straight, and left. So what are we talking about when we look at safety? So in a traditional intersection, we're looking at conflict points. Now, a conflict point is any time one vehicle interacts with another vehicle. As you can see that's lit up by these dots. It's green, yellow, and red to kind of necessitate the difference between a severe crash and a light crash. Most notably, with a traditional intersection, we have a total of 32 conflict points. When a roundabout, that shrinks down to 8 with pretty much no crossings, so that limits the amount of severe impacts that could actually occur within the roundabout. Also in consideration when you think about this is what are the pedestrians going through? So in a traditional intersection, we're looking at also 16 conflict points for pedestrians, that's 4 conflict points per leg, versus a roundabout which has 8, which is 2 conflict points per leg, which is separated by these splitter islands, which I'll get into later. So operating through a roundabout. As I was saying before, roundabouts are becoming more common throughout the U.S. and Connecticut in general, so I hope everyone here had at least a little exposure to how to drive and operate through one. Mainly a roundabout is made up of a few different items, but I'll highlight a few here. So we have our splitter islands that come in on all the approaches. Now that helps with speed calming. That also helps separate our pedestrians so they have refuge islands, and it splits the crosswalk up, as well as a truck apron that goes around the middle. So in a regular operation, when you're driving through a roundabout, it's kind of the main motion that you're doing is you're turning left to see if traffic is coming, and then you turn right. Now this continues as you move through the roundabout. Even if you are doing almost a U-turn motion, you're always looking left for traffic, and then you're turning right. So what happens when a heavy vehicle or a large truck comes through here? Now I know I mentioned the truck apron before, so how does a truck surpass that? The truck does not actually drive directly onto the apron itself. What happens is the cab will try to follow the same motion as a car itself, with the back wheels of the trailer actually accessing the truck apron itself. Now these are some software kind of shown images. They're not strictly what every truck will do, it's on average what a truck will do. So the main line that you see here is where the cab goes, and these lines on the outside are actually where your off-tracking wheels go. So that's why the apron is there. It keeps the vehicles within the roadway itself while allowing the trucks and larger vehicles to get through. As you can see here, this is a truck kind of coming around. It's utilizing the truck apron while the cab is staying within the footprint of the roadway as it traverses through. Now, another consideration we do look at is we look at all sorts of vehicles. So this, an example, is an oversized lowboy, which is used to traverse heavy equipment through our highways and state routes. As you can see, there's still enough room between where the apron lies and the bottom of the trailer itself. And in showing, this is just a short video to see on the back end of a truck coming through and then going right. You can see the vehicle following is also staying within that footprint, and there's no need for a regular passenger car to go over the truck apron. Now, before I was talking about speed reduction with some splitter islands, so how that occurs is we do it through curvature. So we have our splitter islands introduce curves. The truck apron itself also induces a curve, and then you have a curve to exit as well. Now this helps limit the speeds to about 15 to 25 miles an hour as you enter and exit the roundabout itself. Now with this picture here, if you can follow the blue line, as a car is traveling from the right-hand side of the screen to the left hand, the splitter island has curvature that's introduced. This allows the driver to slow down and introduces a physical barrier as you come up to a yield sign to allow for pedestrians to cross or for traffic to come through. The curvature tightens up as you go into the roundabout itself, and the apron is present there. And now coming out, the curvature isn't as aggressive as before, so that way you can accelerate on the way out. So what does that mean for crash reduction? So nationally on a scale, we're seeing about 80% decrease in severe crashes and 50% decreases in overall crashes. That can kind of be mimicked with what we're seeing in Connecticut nowadays with the intersections that have been converted to roundabouts themselves. What else does that mean? It also means intersection efficiency. What do I mean by that? So when you do install a traditional signal equipment, it's more of a mechanical installation. You're looking at electricity over the years of the lifespan. We're seeing about 20 years for a regular lifespan of a signal. And also, any time that we need to come back out to do retiming, rephasing, someone could, collide with the mast arm itself. And overall, even at a traditional intersection, we're still looking at fuel cost of idle time, waiting in traffic, whereas a roundabout, we see a lot less of that, and you're able to traverse through. And, when the power goes out, sometimes the lights go out if they don't have the flashing modules in them. When the power goes out with a roundabout, at the end of the day, it's still a roundabout. Another nice feature that can come with roundabouts as well is it opens up a lot of space for aesthetics. Now, a couple of these pictures here are from some of the roundabouts throughout the state. A lot of towns like to utilize them as an entrance into the downtown, an entrance into more of a village feel where you have a lot more commerce occurring. Now, we work with towns and our landscape division as well to kind of create these little sketches that then turn into what we see in the real world. And that could be plantings within the splitter islands, gardens within the truck apron itself, and flagpoles, signage. We work with everybody to kind of make sure everybody enjoys what they're going to be seeing out there when they're driving. So now I'm going to bring it back around to our concept alternatives, and we can go through the differences between what we have for what we've analyzed, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. He's going to take you through the rest of the presentation.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, so going into our alternatives. First up, this is what we anticipate a roundabout alternative would look like. You see the circular roadway in the middle with as well as the splitter islands on the side. With, of course, comes along with the necessity to realign Route 83 South Road to bring it into alignment with the northern section of Route 83. Obviously, there would need to be the construction of islands as well as the mountable truck apron. As for pedestrian amenities, so there's a desire to turn this into a village area. There's a desire to make this more accessible to pedestrians. So what we propose is closing sidewalk gaps to the south, connecting them to the plaza holding the Dunkin' as well as the subway, and down towards the newer housing development right below, right off screen to the south. In addition to that, we would also propose extending sidewalks on the western and northern legs to give more access and sort of tee those legs up for future more corridor access projects. Now, so we're taking a closer look. Here we see the truck apron. So the truck apron, Andrew pointed out the functionality of that. Trucks come through. The drivers want to stay on the roadway. They don't want to bump up. It's about 2 inches or so above the rest of the roadway. But, so they drive around. Their trailer is goes up on the truck apron, and they're able to make their way around. We use various softwares which give us a very, well, conservative look at how they'll do that to make sure that, no truck is going to get stuck in there. this also, because it is a little bit off the ground, this adds to the curvature of somebody driving through. Somebody drives into the roundabout, you don't want to have a little bump as you're driving through, so you go around and it's a gentle sort of 15 to 25 mile an hour way. The splitter islands, those those give people, that signifies to drivers that you're coming up to an intersection. Something is happening. I'm getting a little bit of curvature coming in, slowing down a little. And it also provides opportunities for pedestrians to sort of get out of the way. Also with the splitter islands, I just want to point out, as they approach the circular roadway, if you see there, it curves a little more. This is really to point drivers in the correct direction, getting them going in that counterclockwise motion around the way. So everyone, as they approach, they see the signs, their car is automatically, being guided to go the right way. Obviously, this is a developed area. There are driveways and access points. Our design team can work with landowners to figure out ways to get to those access points. One of the more popular ways is to put down stamped concrete, which continues the line of the splitter islands, but enables people to cross over as they're flush with the roadway. And here you see on each 4 sides crosswalks. The longest crossing is about 45 feet in this design. Included in that 45 feet is a 6-foot pedestrian refuge. So what happens? Somebody's saying, right where that call out is going. If they want to cross the street there, they come up, just look to their left. Legally, vehicles have to yield, but always make sure somebody is yielding. But if you have an acceptable gap, you just cross. 19 feet, you're in an area of refuge. Look to your right. Same idea. Cross another 19 feet and you're on the other side. Now with the traffic signal alternative, again, this begins with the realignment of Route 83. This is to bring the north and south traffic into alignment so that they can see each other, so that they can operate as any other intersection well, I shouldn't say any, but most other intersections you drive through. You'll see that this still takes up a fair amount of land, and this is to accommodate turn lanes on all the approaches. Pedestrian amenities, same as before, closing gaps to the south, adding sidewalks where there currently are none in preparation for, whatever development may want to come in the future. Now, coming in at what we would anticipate, the normal favored design for signals are mast arms. This enables the signal heads to be right at the other side of the roadway from you. Every head at their proper lane, as well as you're crossing the roadway, you can see the signal the entire time. If you're trying to make a left turn, if you get to the middle of the roadway, you're not stuck under it, just wondering, is it still green? You know it's still green. Left turn lanes, we propose adding those on all approaches. This gets people turning left out of the way so that there's no queue building up behind them. And it's also a safety feature for when people are no longer, when there's fewer traffic and there are faster cars coming up behind them. Crosswalks on all 4 sides. In this design, again, you'll see there's fairly large corners. This is to enable the tractor trailers moving through here. The longest one is about 80 feet. We propose a exclusive pedestrian phase, which, so for 30 seconds after a pedestrian hits the button, the intersection shuts down and the pedestrian is able to make their way across the roadway. So when we when we are comparing all these options, one of the things we look at is performance. We look at the average delay. This isn't what any one single person experiences, but it's, everyone's delay that they experience divided over everyone else. So you may experience less, someone else may experience more. This is a rough average we get through our analysis software. Now our existing. Currently the delay is fairly long. This is what we would refer to as a level of service F, which, much like your school grades, indicates that your intersection is not working well. Chances are somebody coming up during the busy time may have to wait through a few cycles, may have to wait behind a lot of cars to get through this intersection. That's, in many cases, people, when they're at this intersection at the busiest, are probably waiting over a minute. With the realigned traffic signal, this reduces by about a half to a quarter of what that was. It's people are getting through a lot better. Queues most likely dissipating on every green. The roundabout, very little delay. People are able to move through, continue moving, and if you are stuck in a queue, it's usually a moving queue. That means you're kind of rolling ahead. You may go through the intersection slower than you would if you just had a green. You're not traveling at the same rate of speed, but because everything keeps moving, the overall delay is lower. And, you know, obviously as you look at that, you can think about how much gas someone uses just at this intersection. How much particles that's pumping out into the air that, you know, people are breathing in their businesses at home. How much gas, money they're saving or spending. So we mentioned the tractor trailers. Again, went in, looked at the turning movements, ran programs to make sure that, you know, as we showed earlier, that turn south onto 83, not much room for tractor trailers to do that. They're running, their trailers are bumping up onto off the road where you don't want them. Both of these designs, drivers will be able to make that turn without encroaching either onto the, either off-road or into the other lane. Looking at some of the crash data, there have been one, if not more, incidences of vehicles taking that turn too wide and hitting somebody waiting to make a turn. Another thing that you have to consider is safety. Andrew touched on this a little bit. So this is just a little way to compare what each one means. Crash frequency, a little self-explanatory. That's how often we can expect once an intersection is established, once people are comfortable driving it, how often might you expect crashes to occur? Crash severity. We all make mistakes. Mistakes happen, mistakes will happen. How bad is the potential for them when they do happen? Number of driver decisions. At any one time, when you approach an intersection, you have to make decisions. You have to be looking, considering what everyone else is doing, and deciding how you're going to react. And that's different for every intersection. And speed control. Speed is the number one factor, really, in how bad a crash can be. And that's how they sort of compare. The roundabout really, it really comes down to the geometric. It really comes down to getting lower speeds. And the fact that you make fewer decisions, and honestly, if you can make a right turn on red, you can drive a roundabout. It's really, you pull up, you look to your left, find an acceptable gap, turn right. One thing I would like to point out, a number of driver decisions with the traffic signal realignment, that would go up, but only because we'd be able to bring the road into alignment, both north and south movements would be going. So it would just be the same as every other, you know, four-way intersection with proper alignment. You would no longer have people crossing over, you wouldn't have the long turns coming in. So I just wanted to point that out because that red sticks out, and I wanted to explain why that's there. So property impact. So with the Route 83 realignment, there are some impacts that you can see here. There is property sort of north and south of the intersection, parking lots, some grassy areas that we would likely need to use in order to both bring it into alignment and make room for either the splitter islands or turn lanes. Sort of more important to the people who use these properties would be about estimating around 3 or 4 parking spaces with the plaza to the south that our design team would sort of need to negotiate and work out with the owner of that property. And there is 588 Main Street as well would be impacted by the design. Beyond that, the two designs are fairly similar in how much real estate they take up, which, if you think about it, is sort of impressive that we need all the space. The roundabout does have a little more space to do the circular roadway, but the signalized intersection, there's still a lot of real estate in the middle of that it just needs to operate. So 588 Main Street. This is a Woodward house. This was built in around 1840. It's a Greek revival. It's been around here for a long time, and it is listed in the National Archives as contributing to the historic district. Talking with people, there seems to be a little disagreement on, well, what's under the siding, how historic is it. The point is, it is listed as contributing to the historic district, and as such, we need to work with other groups, other departments, to find out an acceptable way to move forward with any project. We've already begun coordination with the State Historic Preservation Office. Should a project move forward, that work will continue to find a acceptable solution. So, prices. So when comparing them side by side, the total construction cost for a roundabout we estimate to be close to $4 million. For the traffic signal, close to $2,840,000. Preliminary engineering for both around the same, estimating $850,000. Rights of way, again, there's a good amount of land that we have to deal with to make a realignment successful. We'd estimate over $1 million, $1,380,000 for that. This gives an estimated total cost for a roundabout $6,230,000. Estimated total cost for a traffic signal $5,070,000. And Martha?
All right, so with that in mind, I do just want to add to Kevin's point about costs. There is no anticipated cost to the town with this project. As a state road, as 2 state roads, the cost would be a combination of state and federal funds. Our traditional split and breakdown would be 80% federal funds and 20% state funds. Sometimes that percentage gets a little bit changed up, but I just want to reiterate that there would be no cost to the town for this. And that the engagement through the design process would continue. Some of the features that Andrew had talked about, the landscaping, things of that nature, there can sometimes be maintenance responsibilities that can be taken up by the town, but those details are all worked out with the design team in order to make sure that everyone is comfortable with whatever option moving forward. So with that in mind, where are we for next steps? So obviously our purpose tonight is here to gather information. We've gone through the two primary alternatives, given some information. On the next slide, there will be additional opportunities for you folks or your neighbors or friends that couldn't be here tonight to share your thoughts and comments with us. We have a telephone number that can call. We have an email address. And then again, there are forms on the table. Please feel free to grab one if you don't get a chance to make a comment tonight. We do have roughly a 2-week comment period that we try to consider. It's not a hard deadline, but that 2 weeks really allows us an opportunity to make sure that we're hearing the most immediate thoughts and concerns and allow us to take a next step. And that next step is to engage, wrap up all the information, make sure that we can sort of comprehensively understand the feedback that we've gotten, and then share it back with the town. So whatever comments are shared with the DOT, we'll be creating summaries, we'll be sharing back with the town, and making sure that everyone is informed about the general opinions of the two options that were looked at tonight. After that point, then it's really a conversation. Between the two options, I think, we do, as the state, prefer the roundabout option, but a large part of what we're here tonight is to understand what other people might think about that. One way or another, we'll be working with the town to come to consensus on what the next step is. And if a project does advance, then we do move to back to the slide about timelines. So we would assign a design team, allocate the funding. So we'd look for which particular pot of funds this particular project is available for. Fun fact, there are over 50 different federal funding sources that are available to the state of Connecticut. Some are massive dollar amounts, some are smaller dollar amounts that are only available for different areas, so we try to best fit the funding to try to make sure that we can maximize all of that. We would assign and establish an official schedule that would also be shared out with the town and with the general public, so that you know when the design is underway and when construction would be expected to begin. And then I do want to note that under that design phase, there is another public meeting opportunity. So when the design gets to about 30%, when the details are sort of far better in place, the information that we showed up here tonight is an engineered sketch, is what we would say. The design team gets a full 3D survey. They understand utility conflicts. They understand curb lines a little bit better. And the purpose of that meeting is to really to provide that update, have a hard schedule where they have really looked at things in a little bit more detail, and again, provide an opportunity for feedback. So those would be the next steps that we would expect after this. And at this point, I'll just run through the various ways that you can contact us after the meeting. So obviously live question and answer we'll get to in just a second. But there is a project email. We call it a proposed project because no funding yet. So proposed project 129002. The project email is dotpp128-002@ct.gov. So a mouthful. Oh, thank you. Yes, on the screen. Feel free to snap a shot. Yep. Phone number 860-594-2020. If you do leave a voicemail, please reference that proposed project number, PP129002. There's also a website. You can honestly just Google Summers CTDOT Public Info, and this will likely come up, lead to that page. And then the barcode is also an optional survey. So that will give us some information about the presentation tonight, and also ties back with some of our Title VI information, and additional Title VI information is available at the website below as well. Following the meeting on the website, there will be sort of a summary that will be posted, so a summary of the meeting and all of this contact information will be available there as well. So now that we're through all of that, we'll open the floor to questions. If you guys want to come up, we'll kind of just We'll take questions as they come, all MC. So if anyone has a question, they can raise their hand. People can ask multiple questions, but we do just ask you to be aware as we're going through. And we'll try to get to everybody. So start with the first question. Yep. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I love looking at all of this, and I appreciate all of your work and your research. You mentioned there'll be... Lisa Horan, 43 Shady Dell Lane. You mentioned there'll be information available on the website. Will it include the PowerPoint?
I'm honestly not sure. So this is our first in-person meeting since the post-COVID everything. So previously, the entire presentation had been posted. Is the link live? Is there an opportunity for the YouTube after, or is it just live?
The YouTube stays up forever. It's on the town YouTube channel.
Okay.
Or you can go to the town website and click on live, click on meetings, and it'll bring you to YouTube.
Okay,
But you
so,
can get all of this from there, but I don't know if it's your site.
We'll have to follow up on that. We'll try to make sure that it is, but I'm unfortunately not sure right now.
okay. I've talked with people at the state troopers about the problem with the current intersection with stoplights and even left turn lanes. I would love to sit at that intersection sometime and count for 1 week the number of red lights blown at that intersection. It is insane. And people coming in the left turn lane, the one left turn lane, running the left turn arrow, getting people in the opposing lane, like me, pissed off. The running of the lights there, the red lights and the expired turn arrow is nonstop all day, every day. I cannot advocate for the roundabout more strongly. Please do it now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's on?
It is, yes.
On? You're on? Let me write it down for you. Then you'll have it. Hi.
Hi.
I like the idea of aligning Route 83. Oh, Robert Issa, 55 Franklin Woods Drive.
Thank you.
I like the idea of aligning Route 83. That's a problem. Do you know who put this presentation together?
The PowerPoint?
Yeah, the whole thing.
It was the three of us.
Okay. Did any of you spend any time observing the traffic at rush hour here?
We've seen it, and we've heard folks in town share it with us as well.
It's quite a bit, right?
Yep.
Okay. It's been my experience that people tend to hesitate at roundabouts, rotaries, whatever you want to call them, okay? Do I enter? Is the guy coming around, or is he going that way? So you hesitate. I think you're going to have traffic backed up in all four directions. What I would propose, and I'm not a traffic engineer, align Route 83 like you suggested. Good idea. Get rid of that ugly, yellow, national eyesore. Thank you. And what I would do is put a right turning lane in both directions of Route 83. You're going to alleviate some of the traffic on 83. If you do that, you may be able to leave the light green longer on 190 and improve that traffic direction. But a rotary, I'm concerned. We have the Nets tractor-trailer training school that comes through there. We have 2 gas stations with tanker trucks that come through there, and a lot more tractor-trailers that go through that intersection. Yep. I think you're gonna create a mess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Bob Teasing, 12 High Meadows Crossing in Summers. And I would disagree with that gentleman. I think roundabouts are great. I used to live in Ellington, and that roundabout in Ellington is fantastic. I think the roundabout in Stafford is great. The only problem I ever had with roundabouts was when I was in Australia, and you'd have to go the opposite way.
Tricky like that.
And that's extremely difficult, you know, especially if there's nobody else in the intersection or in the roundabout. But I think the way that you've designed this, it would alleviate any problem like that, because you're leading the people into the correct way to go. The only problem I see is, how are you going to control the traffic when you're building the roundabout?
It's a great
Now,
question.
that's gonna be a problem.
Yep.
But anyway, I support the roundabout entirely.
So I'll take a stab and then hand it off. So it is a great question about constructability during building a roundabout. How do you make the circles happen? So, the realignment obviously happens offline. The major intersection isn't impacted when that work is happening. And it is more impactful to build a roundabout versus a standard intersection. It is impactful for probably one summer's worth of work, maybe a little bit longer depending on the details. Our construction staff do try to coordinate those efforts too. They do all the outside work first before you get to anything in the inside, that anything is disruptive. And it is disruptive for a while. There's certainly no denying that. But it is something that our construction staff is very comfortable doing. They've done it in other places, many around here as well. So while it is impactful, it is a short-term impact. And then it does end up providing the roundabout at the end of the day. So there is notices that are posted when any lane closures are expected. The police department is very much involved and contacted about that. I'm not sure exactly how much lane closures or breakdowns would happen. That's kind of an individual per project thing, but those notices go out if there is any closures to try to allow people, notice to either avoid during this time of day or whatever the case may be. So construction staging is sort of individual to every single project, but you're absolutely correct that during that brief period of time, that one season, a roundabout does have impacts for operating traffic. I don't know if I missed anything there. Okay.
Catherine Mashak, 54 Springfield Road. I live 3/10 of a mile north of the intersection. Does the town have a choice? Or is this going to be the DOT, Connecticut DOT decides?
So that's part of the reason we're here tonight, is to solicit this feedback and then to talk with the town afterwards. So we presented two options tonight because there are two options on the table. We do feel that the roundabout does have the data behind it to show that it is a preferred alternative, but that does not mean that that is the only alternative. So that's a huge part of why we're out here tonight, in order to show information before any funding is committed to, so that we can decide what the next step is, and we decide with the town's partnership.
All right, so I guess my next question is for our town leaders. Do we have a choice, or are you two going to decide what we're going to do?
You definitely have a choice.
Okay, all right, thank you. And so you think the construction will only be maybe 3-4 months?
So it's hard to say at this point. That's what we would consider a design level detail, and that would be a big part of what would be shared at that next public meeting, that 30% meeting, where they would have more information. The exact amount of time can depend on a lot of different things. It can depend on when construction starts. If they aren't able to start until, say, August or September, then there might be some impact during the winter, but they probably wouldn't be actively working. If they're able to start right at the beginning of spring and it's a light winter, they might be able to go through in one season. So it's difficult to say, but we would usually say 1 to 2 years at this point, because there's a lot of variables that we just don't know.
So that center of town would be under construction for 1 to 2 years?
On average, yes.
That's what I thought. Well, I can understand doing a roundabout when you have an intersection of 5 or more roads coming together. But with a simple cross, I don't see the value. I think it was said by another gentleman, I feel that during rush hour, it's going to be worse. My experience has been people get in the roundabout and they're going like bats out of hell, and they don't care. People don't take turns.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do their thing there first. And I think there's going to be more backup than there is now. I've lived in town 55 years. I've lived in my place for 28. Since they changed the light, at least I can get to the post office within 2 lights. People are all upset because, they have to wait during a rush hour. Well, rush hour lasts maybe half an hour. So, and I've watched them back up to my house, but then it's gone. So I don't support the roundabout. I think there's going to be other issues. Once it's done, you don't undo it. It's going to be there permanently. And I don't think, I mean, we don't have much of a center of town anymore. And, you know, the stuff about the historic center and a village, and that's a bunch of baloney, because it's all gone anyway. So I'm not in favor of the roundabout. That's my feeling. You haven't convinced me yet. All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, I'm David Marty. I live at 50 Springfield Road, right next door to Catherine. Best of friends and great neighbors, but I 100% disagree with Catherine's opinion on this. And why I'm sharing this with you is that I grew up in other countries. My dad worked for the State Department, and every other country I lived at, major intersections were handled with rotaries. And the studies that you showed also proved the efficiencies and the effectiveness of them. Last spring, I had a chance to spend a week in Switzerland. In Switzerland, rotaries are the norm, a regular intersection is the exception. And it was unbelievable how easy it was to navigate around Switzerland with all the rotaries that they had there. So that's my feelings are that this would be a great thing. I think there's hesitancy because it's new to Connecticut. And that's why people are concerned about it. But I know myself in Ellington and in Stafford, I think it's so much easier right now with the rotary there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get you, Dave.
I know you will.
Hi, I'm James Burrell, 111 Highland View Drive. I just wanted to come and express that I'm in favor of the roundabout, and I base that on the ones around here in Ellington, Stafford. Every time I go through, I say, this is so much nicer, you just keep moving. And, you know, as far as some people concerned about the construction, I remember in Stafford, they tore down that diner, and there was construction for a long period of time, but they still kept the traffic moving. They cleared a lot of land, but it kept moving. So I don't think that's going to be a major concern. I said I'm in favor. I base it on Stafford and Ellington, as long as it's not like East Long Meadow, which is everybody knows about. These are just round and they keep moving, so that's good. So my question, I just live 2 miles away, so I figured 10 minutes was plenty of time to get here. So I apologize if this was covered before I got here, but I got stuck at the light, and I watched it change red to green a couple times. But I just curious about the existing properties. The 2 gas stations have recently been redone, and the old Summers Inn is being reconstructed. Are they going to lose any land? Is anything going to be moved? Thank you.
Yeah, I can take that. So, with regards to the gas stations, those are active businesses. I don't. When we were looking through options, trying to throw whatever we had on the board, that was on our minds. They're businesses. There are people who use them, people who depend on them. So, to answer your question, actually, with the roundabout, the gas station on the southwestern corner would be untouched because we're moving the roadway to the other direction. With the Henny Penny, it opened so new that I actually had to get new aerial photos because there was a bank there and somebody was telling me there's a gas station there. And I was like, you're right. But, so with that one, there would be I would anticipate a slight sliver of the grassy area needed to either make room for a left turn lane in a signal, or to make room for the splitter islands. That's what I anticipate here. An actual design team may have different ideas. With the Old Summers Inn, that's another historic building. And I know that, the fellow in there now, I guess he's planning to open up a new restaurant, so, we definitely don't want to impact, that, well, more than through, construction and hopefully improving the entire area. That would remain, completely, untouched.
Yep, so one small sliver on the northeast quadrant. Yes, by all means. Are you gentlemen queued up too, or? Yeah. Okay. By all, yep, go ahead.
My name is Kathy Devlin. I live at One Lake Drive, which is off of 83. Looking at the fact that it's a roundabout and we're like in the last development coming up to the light. We're never, oftentimes, given any opportunity to get out of our own area because they won't even let you come. They'll creep up car after car. My idea is with a turnabout, you can move more traffic than it can be, so it's more comfortable for people who live anywhere on 83. Some neighbors at Colonial Drive might run into the same problems that we are, and I think it's very, very thoughtful, and I support it.
Great, thank you. One thing I'll note too, it's not something that many people consider when you think about driving a roundabout too, but if you are on the approach coming towards it, if you're a driveway coming in, instead of needing to make a left across traffic, one of the things that you can actually do if there is a big queue is make a right and then actually use the roundabout to make a U-turn and come back the other way too. So that has been something that we've heard people have shared that with us about their usage of it, depending on people's preference, but that is always an option as well. If, the speeds coming out are quickly, moving away from you, you don't feel safe making a left turn, you can always make that right and use the roundabout to come back through.
Good evening, Brad Pellisier, Scully Road, Summers, Connecticut. I had some specific questions about the design for the roundabout.
Sure.
I noticed that there were center dividers on the feeder lanes into it, which, according to the drawing, would allow Penny only to be able to get fuel trucks coming in from the east, would allow the mobile station only to get trucks coming in from the west. The new restaurant coming in would only be able to draw customers in from the north. Your design cuts off 75% of the traffic access to all of these businesses that are there. We have a hard enough time in Summers right now attracting and maintaining viable businesses without having a design that cuts away 75% of their viable traffic. My other concern, you had mentioned, and it's true, in a roundabout, you're looking left and turning right, but you've talked about having pedestrian crossings, some of whom are going to be coming from the right. We need to have people looking both ways. I'm not sure how you encourage that in the design. I worked in Hartford for many years, and it took me a while to decide it was a good idea because I had to drive halfway to the commuter lot in Enfield. I'm halfway there anyway, to start taking the bus, and discovered that was a wonderful way actually to get into Hartford, and I could actually get work done or read a book while somebody else dealt with 91. Connecticut hasn't done a really great job of expanding its mass transit network out to where people are. We're basically a suburban state with a rural bus system. You could alleviate much of this traffic congestion, much of the idling, by having 2 or 3 morning or afternoon buses servicing the 190 corridor. And I wondered if that options other than the how do we deal with the cars options have been considered, such as mass transit options. Thank you.
Thank you. I do just want to note with regard to the businesses too, while the sketch did show the splitter islands extending, one of the options that are in place for splitter island design, and again it would be something that our design team would work with the details of, is actually breaking and separating that island to provide openings for cars to turn in there. And so while there have been cases where because of one case or another that hasn't been an option, our goal is to continue to provide access to businesses wherever possible. And so breaking that splitter island using some of those stamped concrete methodologies that still show the shape of it and stopping the curbing to actually allow that break is an option. So while the comment is very valid that sometimes that does happen and access does change, the goal is to maintain access, and there are tools in the toolbox to allow for that to happen.
Hi. Bob, C-H-U-N-Y-K. 439-4 Bridges Road. First question. I vote for a new sound system in this room. I don't think half the people are listening to you. I mean, you checked out the microphone. It's not working. Okay, let's get to the facts. Can anybody here tell me who owns that monstrosity yellow building? I've been here 22 years. Nobody has put a frickin' penny into that thing. I've seen the Bilko doors be removed only with Bilko doors put in that are rusted to pieces, and they came from the town dumps. Nobody paints it. Nobody does anything to it. I wouldn't bet if there's homeless living in there or rats. So that's my question. You two are the big guys. Who owns that place?
The Pappas family that owns the entire thing.
Pappas family. Okay. Apparently, I don't know if they're here, so don't shoot me if they are, they don't give a hoot about that building. If they did, I owned an historic building up in East Hampton, Mass. Okay, I had that for 40 years. Turned it into a daycare. Beautiful building. I put my heart and soul into it because it was the center of East Hampton. These people don't do anything. So how are you going to get the... If they were business people, they would have sold it years ago, I would imagine. I don't think they care about history or keeping it historic, because if they did, they would put some money into it and make it... There's no pride. So whoever owns it, they don't care. How are you going to grab it from them? Can you do it by domain or something? How are you going to get it?
So we have a full rights-of-way process that the design process allows for, and actually it is a good point. Can everybody hear me in back? I feel like I'm projecting, but I can... All right, I'll try harder. Thank you for the reminder. So we have a full rights-of-way process. We actually have a division of rights-of-way that helps with property acquisition during the process. The first step is usually to meet with the property owner. Properties are compensated for, which is what some of the dollar amounts that we saw in there was an estimate of some of those impacts. And so that is a design level activity that would happen during the design phase, where there's a negotiation. If for some reason a property owner is not looking to sell, or there's a reason that the project needs to move forward, we do have the right of eminent domain, but that is sort of a last option. We do try to work through and negotiate with the property owner.
If they want to do something, they would have done something already. I doubt very much if you're going to grab that building and have it wrecked. I don't think I'll be alive when we do a rotary here. I think by the time you deal with those people, to try to grab it from them, that's probably 8 years from now through litigation, right? And then you put on another 5 years to build a rotary. Crazy. So, good luck. I mean, I'd like to see a rotary myself. I think it works. I think you've done a great job with your engineering and setting this up. But until you can get those people to move along, I think we're dead in the water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ralph Williams. I live at 42 Springfield Road, which makes me the neighbor of him and her.
Tiebreaker.
And I'm a little bit somewhere in the middle of all this. I agree that for sheer drivability, a roundabout is wonderful. But first is the question of construction. I believe that if you were to do a realignment of the intersection, you could do the work on the southern part of 83 without changing the current arrangement until you had everything ready to cook. My other concern, a little selfish. I'm one of those pedestrians who walks around here. And this town has made a commitment toward walkability, including a sidewalk survey within the last 2 years. I think that if trusting the goodwill of the traffic entering to let you play chicky to get over to your island of refuge and then get across again is a little wishful thinking. Maybe there'll be fewer car crashes, but I'd rather not have a pedestrian crash. And the few times that I try to navigate crossing 190, I use the crosswalk, which means there's a signal, which means they got to stop. And they ain't going to have to stop if you've got a roundabout. So for my own very selfish concerns, I would say between construction interruption and walkability, I would tend to prefer a realigned intersection to a roundabout, even though I agree that the flow is a lot smoother in a roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrice Carson, Camp Road.
Hi, Patrice.
I just have a couple comments. Right now, it's very unnoticeable the way the alignment is, that there is a lot of pavement there. And I think if you realign 83 so that it's right across from each other instead of having that jog, you'll see a significant increase in what looks like a large pavement piece. I think the road, if you were installed a roundabout, that would solve some of that issue. So if the choice is realignment or a roundabout, I think the roundabout from that perspective would be better. I'm a little concerned about the maintenance of the interior of the roundabout because it's probably really nice and pretty when it first goes in, but it has to be maintained, otherwise it will just look lousy. And it is the center of town, and you've got people who are, you know, helping their properties to become better looking, and it would be nice to be able to keep some sort of maintenance agreement in place for that. I think if anybody needs some convincing on why or how a roundabout can better a traffic situation, you should all head down to Hebron Avenue in Glastonbury. They have installed a series of roundabouts, and unfortunately they didn't do the Main Street end. They should have put one more in at the end there, but that traffic has gone from sitting when you got off of Route 2 to get all the way to Main Street. You could sit there for 20 minutes going through the lights and going through the traffic, and now you just go in and you just keep breezing your way through the roundabouts, and it's a much cleaner, safer, much easier way to do. And I will say, Ralph, I agree with the pedestrian issue, but I know they deal with that there, and it seems to work. So I would say if anybody wanted to see a nice example of how it works, that's a great example. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll note too about the maintenance, just from an FYI, that is one of the things that the design teams do work with the town on. Even in some of the photos that were presented, some of the center islands just had gravel and rocks, sort of low maintenance treatments. Others had far more, involved and planted areas. Some towns have Rotary clubs that can help to maintain those. Some towns have garden clubs. Every town is different, and so the details on all of that are very specific to each individual town.
Hi, Mark Christian, 57 Partridge Run. Big fan of roundabouts. I think there's the ones in Ellington especially, and the new one in Stafford is good. The one concern I have, and this is, you can see it in the old Stafford roundabout downtown, and I think it has to do with not the curves to slow people down. A lot of people don't realize that the person entering has to yield. And, I mean, I've been taken out, or almost taken out several times by somebody coming up 32 North. And there's barely any signage, and I think there's very little signage on the new one in Stafford. So that would be my only concern, but I definitely roundabout. So.
Thank you. I'm actually familiar with the Route 32 northbound on that too, when it was just the painted area. I was actually coming through in a state car and almost got hit for that exact reason. So signing is certainly important, so thank you for your comment.
Could I just follow up on Ralph's question about his concerns about pedestrian experience in a roundabout? Even though I'm pro-roundabout, I am curious what the encouragement is to make people stop for pedestrians in a roundabout. I mean, I know you have the hash marks, but a traffic light certainly does the job better.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, so kind of going along the same lines with the signage, there's yield signs that are installed kind of coming in, and as well along with the splitter island, there's also pedestrian crossing signs, the high fluorescent ones. What happens is with the splitter island, as you kind of enter it, kind of going along with the curvature, you tend to slow down. So when you start slowing down, it acts as a physical barrier. So you're kind of curving, you're paying attention a little more to what's going around. So kind of when you're going into an intersection, if someone's trying to beat the light and someone's trying to cross, so they're ending their cross as well, sometimes you're not focused as much. Whereas with the roundabout, since you're slowing down, you're making a decision to slow down. You can't speed right through it. So while you're doing that, your eyes kind of follow the way the curves are going, and the pedestrians are presented pretty much right in line with that curve to enter into the roundabout. So between the signs and the curvature of the roadway itself, it kind of brings up the, let's say, focus of the driver to help out with pedestrians.
So the curvature is certainly the first step. You know, we can't compel people to stop. That's, you know, if we could, we wouldn't have a job. It'd be great, you know. But the reality is there are a lot of design features that can help to encourage people to do that. And then, frankly, this is a message for every town. If you folks are living here and you folks are driving, if you slow down, you have the opportunity to allow a pedestrian to cross too. So there is a behavioral component of it as well. We want to encourage that. The engineering supports that, but it can't force people to do it. The other thing that I'll note too is during less busy times, maybe during peak hour when there are constantly cars coming into the roundabout, that is more of a concern. People are still rushing, still trying to get through. On those off-peak times, you know, you don't necessarily need to wait for the pedestrian signal to come in. You can make that crossing less controlled. The same way that during an off-peak time, you might have a red light as a driver, and you still need to wait for that red light. If there's no one else in the roundabout, you could just enter. So, you know, pedestrian safety is a huge topic right now across the state. We're seeing, frankly, horrific numbers with just some of the safety components, and it is very much on the forefront of our minds. We are doing a lot of what we can with engineering tools, but frankly, a lot of it does come down to the behavior of the drivers. So I think it's important that it's noted, and that, you know, we would do everything, and there's good data to support that slowing people down does encourage that, but unfortunately, there's no silver bullet solution for that.
Joan Formeister, 46 Skyridge, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating things. I couldn't hear too well back there. Just to clarify the sort of answer you gave to Kathy, do we have a choice? Are you saying that our choice is between Plan A and B, that the state's already decided that, so we don't really have a choice, but what is going to be a massive project?
So the no build is still very much a choice as well. We're here because there's interest in a project. We're here because the data says that there's a problem to be solved. But if at the end of the day there's no desire to move the project forward, the state would not compel a project on the town, no.
Okay. Has any consideration been given to fixing the lights if that's the main problem? I'm not hearing that safety's an issue there, which is one reason that the state has pushed roundabouts on some towns. I'm not aware, I'm also not concerned personally with the wait. I know it's during rush hour. I would think that the brains at the state could figure out how to even get more than 3 cars through the left turn onto 83 South. That I don't understand why they just haven't put a couple $100,000 into that. I don't like either of the price tags. I think it's a waste for this state that's almost bankrupt to insist on all of these roundabouts. And to say it's state and federal money, I think probably everybody in this room is paying taxes into that state and federal money, so we are paying for it. The alignment of 83, I feel with traffic going exclusively north or south, I don't see the big problem there because you've got your left turn lanes and you're not competing with traffic in the other direction, so I think that's a lot safer than it was. As far as DOT maintenance, I wouldn't count on it in the center. I've known people that had work done, you know, at the bottom of their driveways look beautiful, and it's never been maintained, so, you know, I'm not convinced about that. And having made, I would guess, hundreds of trips through the 2 roundabouts in Stafford, I know I seem to be the lone person here. Everybody else thinks they're wonderful. I don't. I've been cut off more than I've made it through, and to me the big problem with roundabouts is drivers. I can't say nobody. Some people know how to use them. Many people don't. People refuse to use their directional signals, so you're sitting there waiting to see where's this person in the roundabout going. So I think a big part of it's driver education. So that's another reason I don't like roundabouts. And It took years for Stafford to complete those two projects. So this is going to be disruptive for a very long time. I think I've probably pretty much covered all my negatives. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
My name is Bill Pryor from 95 Blue Ridge Drive. I've driven all over the country for 40 years, and I took a job down in Ellington, and I worked there 5 years before. I think it's 4 years after the roundabout was down here. And every morning we couldn't get into that company or get out of it. And once they built that roundabout, it just beautifully, that's 5 corners, and it worked beautifully. Yeah, it took a while to build it, but once it came in, the results were excellent. And I just want to say, I think, yeah, it's going to take a little longer, and that's a little more money. But from a safety standpoint, it works beautiful. I've driven through it 25 times a week since they built it, and it's great. And somebody mentioned a car usually sometimes slows down approaching it, and they get a little leery about looking left and going right and all that. That's usually a guy with a fedora on driving an old Buick. And all you got to do is tap the horn. He'll take right off the road.
Thank you. All right, the microphone is open if anybody else has a comment or thought.
You're as close to the experts as we're going to get here. So what's your recommendation for what we've got?
We do prefer the roundabout for the combination of benefits to it, because it does, I think Patrice made the point about the reduced sort of open space, having that sort of cuts down on the visual, the reduced idling, just the general operations, and then the slide that actually showed the traffic operations as well. The roundabout is projected to have more efficiency versus even the improved signal intersection. So the signalized intersection does have benefits over the existing condition, but the roundabout is our preferred alternative as we see it, but we would call that a preliminary preferred alternative right now because public feedback does factor into that. Yes.
I'd like to make one more comment. Again, it's Bob Teasing, 12 High Meadows Crossing, Summers. Regarding crosswalks, I think there's a problem with the way the crosswalks in Connecticut are designed, because if you want to go in the traffic has to stop when you're in the crosswalk, right? But the problem is the crosswalks don't start soon enough. I mean, if the crosswalk started before the, where they get into the roadway, then the people who are driving would say, well, they're in the crosswalk. If there was a designated area, and in Florida, they have some great crosswalks down there. On Route A1A, I know in east of Melbourne, because they divide the road so that, they actually put in stanchions along the road that are colored, and, then they've got that really nice sign where the crosswalks are, and then they also have some flashers. So, I mean, you could make your crosswalks a lot safer than they are. So, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
So if you have time after, I can actually talk with you about some of the specifics for things that, are sort of getting tossed around if you're curious.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Imbriano, 49 Franklin Woods Drive, Summers, Connecticut. I'm familiar with many traffic patterns, both in Europe and here in the United States, and I am not at all deterred by a roundabout. One of the things I've discovered in Madison at their roundabout on Route 79 is that they have a police presence at especially, for instance, they had police presence at all the heavy traffic times. And they're right there, and they have a spot for them. It's not like they had to squeeze in. and move, something, or be half on the sidewalk and half, it doesn't fit. If there was room where you could have that kind of supervision, I think a lot of people would feel a lot more comfortable in that kind of a transition. They had elections. People were actually in the roundabout in Madison on Route 79 during the election in the center with their signs. And the police let them do it, but the police presence was there on all of the intersections. So it made such a difference. People were not intimidated. They did all the normal traffic observations that you would normally do. And I just think if we had something built into that project where we could have supervision at times where buses and trucks are, having to augment a little bit into that pattern, then that would be a big safety concern that I would feel much more comfortable with. So I just thought I'd mention that. And
No, thank you for your comments.
thank you for your presentation.
Make sure I speak loud enough, huh? Name's Pat Peel. I'm a resident in Summers, 111 Stubbins Road. Can everybody hear me? No? I don't know what to do.
You can turn to them if you want, that's fine.
Huh?
You can turn to them if you want, that's fine.
Okay, is that better? No? There you go. Okay, you're gonna have to live with it. Oh, really? It doesn't go up? Or shrink, right? I just have a couple questions. When you were talking about, I know about the roundabout, some of it sounds good. You're talking about, this could be 3-4 years down the road. So it's not imminent, but we have an imminent problem.
Correct.
So have you guys considered, let's say they decide that we're gonna go that way. We have an imminent problem, so why can't we fix a little bit of the problem? First thing is the lights, and I know they're on computer and so forth, and the timing. I think the timing could be improved on 2 of the roads coming in where we get the biggest blockage. And if that timing was, they had more time to come through, it would save, and the other ones aren't busy at the same time, like 4 to 6 at night during the week, you know? That's one thing. If that could go, fine. The other thing is, sooner or later, you're gonna take the yellow house and maybe a little corner of the gas station. Why couldn't we add a lane, especially with the yellow houses? Why couldn't the state buy the yellow house, add a lane? That would be good too, so we'd have 2 lanes there, and see what we could do about possibly putting an extra lane, a turn lane, just a little bit in, just to make a better turn for the trucks and stuff. And, you're gonna buy it anyway, so, one way or the other. So why couldn't we start with that? That might improve the situation. You could do it temporary, or do you have to do the whole thing at one time?
Usually we have to do the whole thing at once, and that comes down to the, frankly, just the administrative process that goes hand in hand with it. Sometimes if our maintenance folks have the ability to get out a little bit faster, they can do some work, but most of the construction that you see is done by a contractor that doesn't work for the state, and the process of actually awarding a project to a contractor has certain steps to it. Your point is certainly well received, though, particularly about maybe retiming the light. That's something that we can take back to our Division of Traffic Engineering and see if there isn't an opportunity.
Yeah, 'cause you see if they all go at the same time?
Yep.
For the same amount of time? And the other 2 lanes there that we have a problem with, take care of that?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, before we wrap it up? Well, thank everybody for coming, and more information will come at our next meeting when there's more designs to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Happy holidays, everyone.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, you?
Good. Kim? You want credit? Aye.